The cameras flashed. The crowds at Paris Fashion Week froze. And just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession. But fast forward a year, and the flashing lights faded into dark, deafening silence. A deactivated Instagram. A vanished star. Now, the silence is broken. Welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
We really do.
Yeah. And our mission for this deep dive is to analyze the really explosive and honestly pretty disastrous return of actor Barry Keoghan. You know, he just completely vanished from the public eye after that December 2024 split from pop superstar Sabrina Carpenter.
Completely vanished.
Right. And now, going against like all conventional public relations logic, he has finally decided to explain everything. And if you ever wondered how a celebrity's image can just shatter overnight, you're going to want to hear this.
Oh, absolutely. Which brings us to a really fascinating stack of sources today.
Yeah.
We are looking at some harsh PR critiques from the publication Adultery Fairy. We've got some very detailed relationship timelines. And crucially, the complete transcript of the highly controversial Friends Keep Secrets podcast deep dive where Barry finally broke his silence.
Yeah.
Because what we're really looking at here is, I mean, it's a masterclass in how not to manage a crisis. And it acts as a mirror for the rather ruthless way we consume celebrity pain.
It really does.
Right.
So the core headline here is that Barry broke the absolute golden rule of celebrity scandals, which is he opened his mouth.
Right. Which, you know, it sounds counterintuitive to the average person, right? Because our natural instinct when we are misunderstood is to, well, explain ourselves.
Right, like, let me tell you my side of the story.
Exactly. But in the ecosystem of the internet, offering an explanation is essentially providing fresh ammunition to a firing squad.
That is, wow, that is spot on. And to really understand the gravity of that mistake, we have to look at the sort of cinematic buildup of this relationship. It was a complete whirlwind.
A total whirlwind.
Yeah, I mean, we are talking September 2023. They meet at a Givenchy show. The chemistry is immediate. By early 2024, they are utterly owning the Met Gala red carpet.
Oh, they owned it.
Right. He is literally starring as her love interest in the Please, Please, Please music video. I mean, they were the undisputed couple of the year. But then December 2024 hits, and it's over.
This abruptly.
Abruptly.
Yeah.
And the vacuum left by that breakup wasn't just empty space. It was instantly filled by this massive cheating rumor involving an influencer named Brecky Hill.
And that rumor, it's a perfect study in the mechanics of a modern digital scandal because the fire started simply because Brecky Hill reposted some TikTok clips that vaguely hinted she had hooked up with him.
Just reposts.
Yeah, it was just reposts. But if we look at the actual facts reported at the time, Brecky Hill completely retracted the claim shortly after the firestorm began.
Oh, wait, she did?
Yeah, she posted a video explicitly admitting she had never even met Barry in her life.
Are you kidding me?
No. She stated she only reposted those clips because she found the accusations of her being a homewrecker totally ridiculous and she thought it was a joke.
Wow. But the internet completely ignored the truth.
Yeah.
The retraction didn't matter at all because it didn't fit the juicy narrative the public had already decided on.
Right. Nobody cared that she had never met him.
Exactly. And Barry's initial reaction was to just vanish. He deactivated his Instagram entirely. And looking at the sources, he didn't do it just because his feelings were bruised, you know?
No, not at all.
He did it to protect his family. I mean, he has a 3-year-old son, Brando. He had people literally showing up at his grandmother's door.
That is just inhumane.
Right. The comments on his pages were vile, relentless. So he went silent.
And from a strict crisis management perspective, that was the absolute best move he could have made.
Really?
Oh, yeah. When you are the target of a narrative that massive and that venomous, silence starves the fire. A scandal needs oxygen to burn, and a celebrity's reaction is the purest oxygen there is. He had a perfectly good protective silence going, shielding his peace and his family from the worst of the fallout.
Okay, I hear that, but I want to push back a little on this idea that silence is an impenetrable shield.
Okay, go for it.
Because I'm going to borrow an incredibly sharp analogy directly from the Adultery Fairy article we reviewed. The author, Teresa Conway, wrote that trying to deny these rumors now is like trying to put toothpaste back in the tube with your bare hands.
Oh, that's a great image.
Right. It's messy and it's impossible. And she points out that when a pop star of Sabrina Carpenter's magnitude controls the narrative through a heartbreak album, like, think about her massive August 2025 release, Man's Best Friend.
Right.
which features that incredibly targeted track, Man-Child.
Oh, yeah.
The power dynamic completely shifts. If the other person is dropping a platinum album about the breakup, does the public even want the truth? Or do they just want a compelling villain to sing along against?
Oh, that is the pivotal question of human psychology and pop culture, honestly. Because the reality is the public doesn't want a notarized timeline of factual events.
Yeah,
They want a narrative that feels emotionally resonant. When a heartbroken pop star sings about betrayal, the audience bonds with her pain on a visceral level. You cannot manufacture the specific raw energy of someone who feels wronged. And Sabrina masterfully harnessed that emotion and shaped the narrative. Look at her 2026 tour imagery.
Oh, the microphone.
Yes, she designed a custom vintage microphone with a permanent pink lipstick mark on it. And she told the crowd it represents the scars of being too sweet.
It's brilliant.
It is brilliant visual, emotional anchor.
It's iconic. I mean, she is communicating an entire narrative of betrayal and resilience without ever giving a single formal statement to the press. She let the art do the talking.
Precisely. She owned the narrative through a medium she completely controls. Barry's silence was his only viable defense mechanism because, as the Adultery Fairy piece argues, the public news cycle gets bored after about 6 weeks unless someone throws fresh fuel onto the embers.
Right.
By staying quiet initially, he forced his detractors to do all the exhausting heavy lifting of keeping the rumor alive, but his recent podcast appearance completely dismantled that strategy.
Yeah. Which brings us to the core disaster of this entire situation. Because Barry's mistake was thinking that raw vulnerability equals likability. He assumed that if he just showed people his human side, they would back off.
Right.
But vulnerability only works if you control the context.
Yeah.
And the context he chose was deeply, deeply flawed. But before we get into that disastrous interview, if you're loving these Hollywood twists and psychological breakdowns, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead.
The fallout from this specific interview is a terrifying case study in platform mismatch, honestly.
It really is. Let's examine what actually happened. On April 28, 2026, Barry goes on the Friends Keep Secrets podcast. Now, this show is hosted by music producer Blanco, who is Selena Gomez's husband, and the rapper Lil Dicky.
Right.
And this is where a moment of profound, raw human trauma was aggressively stripped of its dignity and turned into a totally tone-deaf punchline for a TikTok reel.
Yeah, and the setting of the show itself is a trap. The podcast is heavily promoted as an intimate hang.
Or it's very casual.
Exactly. It's filmed in a cozy living room setup with hidden cameras, specifically designed to make the guest feel like they're just kicking back on the couch with a couple of friends. And that false sense of security is vital to understand. Barry comes into this environment, he lowers his guard, and finally attempts to explain his year-long absence.
Yeah.
He states that he, quote, just disappeared because the untrue cheating narrative was systematically destroying his mental health. He admitted he started to shy away from the world, dreading the simple act of going outside, let alone attending industry events.
Wow. And that level of agoraphobia is tragic on a human level. But professionally, it's a catastrophe given his career trajectory right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he is prepping to play Ringo Starr in Sam Mendes' highly anticipated 2028 Beatles biopic.
Right.
And he is starring in the upcoming Peaky Blinders film. You can't function as an A-list leading man if the anxiety of stepping outside your front door is paralyzing you.
No, it is an unsustainable way to live. And because of that hidden camera living room format, the conversation veers into profoundly deep, dark territory.
It really does.
It moves entirely past standard pop culture grievance and into real, visceral trauma.
Yeah, Barry opened up in a way that is incredibly rare for an actor of his stature. He talked about his mother. She tragically died of a heroin overdose when she was only 32 years old.
Awful.
And he talked about his own brutal, ongoing struggles with addiction, though he proudly mentioned he's been clean and sober for 2.5 years now.
That's huge.
It is. And then he detailed a terrifying near-death experience where he technically died for a few seconds. He recounted this vivid, haunting vision while he was unconscious.
Yeah.
He saw a blonde woman walking away from him, and on the other side, a group of men stabbing him. He described the physical sensation of holding on to them, begging them to let him stay alive.
I mean, that is an agonizingly vulnerable confession. He is essentially baring his soul, exposing the absolute darkest, most terrifying moments of his existence to these hosts, hoping to bridge the gap of empathy with the audience.
Exactly. And here is where the influencer content machine shows its teeth. Because how did the Friends Keep Secrets podcast choose to promote this profound, tear-jerking confession?
Oh, this makes me so mad.
They took this agonizing story about addiction and near-death, chopped it up into a hyper-fast Instagram reel, and literally distorted Barry's voice with wacky, chipmunk-style audio effects for comedic value.
It's unbelievable.
They slapped some bizarre, dreamlike background music under his trauma and ended the 15-second clip by cutting to Benny Blanco, who just laughs out loud and says, "Wow, let's go outside and talk about something fun."
It is taking a man's genuine psychological pain and running it through a meat grinder for engagement.
That's exactly what it is.
Trying to share a near-death experience on a viral comedy podcast is like trying to perform open-heart surgery on a roller coaster.
Oh, wow.
The environment is just structurally hostile to the procedure. They took his mother's tragic passing and his desperate plea for empathy and fed it into an algorithm that only understands cheap laughs and high retention rates.
Right, and the public reaction was swift.
Yeah.
It was entirely hostile toward the podcast.
As it should be.
Fans were absolutely disgusted. The comments section of that reel turned into a bloodbath. People were calling it a massive disservice to Barry's life story. They blasted the show for real-life trauma just to farm clicks.
Yeah.
One comment that really stood out summed it up perfectly, pointing out how utterly tone-deaf it is to dismiss addiction and mortality for shock value.
Yeah, and the tragic irony here is palpable. Barry Keoghan came out of hiding specifically to humanize himself. His goal was to say, look, I'm a real person, these internet rumors aren't true, and the digital hate is destroying my actual life.
Yeah.
But by choosing that specific platform, he stepped onto a conveyor belt that doesn't view him as a human being with a pulse. It views him as raw material for content.
Yep.
His real pain was discarded, pitched overboard, because it didn't fit the upbeat, wacky, highly caffeinated vibe the hosts wanted to project for their sponsors.
It's devastating.
Yeah.
He broke a year of protective silence to find a safe space to heal, and he ended up being the literal punchline of a promotional clip.
It really is.
And yet, this isn't the only way celebrities are navigating the modern media landscape.
Yeah.
And that's not even the wildest part of today's pop culture landscape. Later in the episode, we'll talk about a shocking twist nobody saw coming involving Ed Sheeran, a shaved head, and shingles. Stay with us.
Oh, I can't wait for this. The contrast between Barry's disastrous vulnerability and how other A-listers are currently managing their public images is staggering. It really highlights the difference between forced PR and authentic narrative control.
Absolutely. Let's pivot to those contrasting strategies. Because while Barry essentially handed the keys to his reputation over to a comedy podcast, other massive stars are writing their own headlines this week in incredibly diverse, effective ways. Let's start with Ed Sheeran.
Okay.
Ed just shocked his entire global fan base by debuting a completely shaved head.
Right. And for an artist whose messy, unkempt red hair has been a cornerstone of his visual brand for over a decade, shaving it off is a massive, highly visible shift.
Huge.
It's the kind of thing that usually sparks wild internet speculation.
But the internet didn't get a chance to speculate because Ed controlled the narrative from minute one. He didn't wait for paparazzi photos to leak. He didn't try to make it look glamorous or edgy. He honestly revealed that he shaved his head for a fresh start because he had just spent a grueling, painful month recovering from a severe case of shingles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he just handed the public the unvarnished, slightly embarrassing truth.
See, that level of unglamorous honesty completely disarms the public.
It really does.
You cannot gossip about a secret when the person just hands you the medical facts. It neutralizes the threat of a scandal because there is no mystery to solve.
Exactly.
Then you look at someone like George Clooney. He's approaching 65, and instead of fighting the aging process with filters or hiding away from the cameras, he is actively publicly reflecting on it.
Yeah, he's leaning in. Right.
He's giving interviews saying he rarely watches his old movies anymore because he prefers to focus on the legacy he is leaving behind. He even casually dropped the news that his own Italian villa is going to play a key role in the upcoming The Devil Wears Prada 2.
I saw that. I mean, he is leveraging his own history. He isn't desperately trying to stay relevant by clinging to his youth. He is dictating the terms of his relevance as a Hollywood elder statesman.
He is soft launching his own aging process, basically. He owns the legacy effortlessly, which makes it impossible for the media to use his age against him.
It's brilliant. And then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum from Ed Sheeran's candid confessions and Clooney's legacy interviews, you have Rihanna,
Oh, the Queen.
Yes. Rihanna literally dominated the global news cycle this week without saying a single word.
Mm-hmm.
She arrived in Mumbai for a Fenty Beauty launch, stepped out of a car in a glamorous, custom-made sari, and the photos went instantly viral. She commanded the world's attention purely through her presence, her fashion, and her visual branding.
Right, because she communicates entirely through aesthetic dominance.
Yes.
She understands that sometimes a meticulously crafted image triggers a deeper psychological response than a written press release ever could.
So look at the contrast here, and I really want you, the listener, to think about this. Rihanna speaks volumes in total glamorous silence. Ed Sheeran disarms the public with unglamorous, relatable honesty about a painful medical issue. George Clooney leans into his age and controls his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Barry Keoghan tries to openly and emotionally explain the darkest moments of his life, and he gets chewed up by the internet machinery. Why do we grant so much grace to some stars and absolutely villainize or mock others?
Because in 2026, fame isn't just about your acting chops, your vocal range, or your raw talent. It is largely, perhaps mostly, about media literacy.
Oh, that's a great point.
It is about understanding the architecture of the internet. It's knowing exactly when to hand over the microphone, and perhaps more importantly, knowing who you are handing it to.
Right.
Rihanna and George Clooney understand the assignment perfectly. They know their brand, they know how the public perceives them, and they control the context of their appearances. Barry, unfortunately, sought deep psychological validation in a forum, a viral, hidden camera comedy podcast that was structurally incapable of holding the weight of his vulnerability.
Yeah, it's all about platform alignment. You can have the most heartbreaking, genuine story in the world, but if you deliver it in a room full of clowns, you're going to get hit with a pie.
Exactly.
You have to know the rules of the game if you're going to play it. Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next.
You know, as we wrap up this analysis, there is a final fascinating detail from the sources that really pulls all of these threads together.
What is it?
We talked earlier about Sabrina Carpenter and how brilliantly she managed her side of the narrative through her music and tour imagery. According to the reporting, Sabrina follows a very strict 12 hours of silence rule before every single one of her concerts.
Really? 12 hours?
Yeah. She uses a whiteboard to communicate with your team, refusing to speak a single word just to preserve her vocal cords for the performance.
Wow, that is some intense athletic dedication to her craft.
It is. But if we pull back and connect this to the bigger picture of everything we've discussed today, maybe there's a profound psychological lesson there for the modern digital age.
I love that.
Think about it. If a celebrity, or even you, listening right now, in your own everyday life, took a mandatory 12 hours of total silence before responding to a vicious rumor, a highly emotionally charged text message, or a viral moment,
Right.
how much unnecessary damage could be avoided? How many bridges would remain unburned? Silence isn't just about protecting your physical voice. In an era where every word can be weaponized, sometimes silence is the only way to protect your story.
Wow, that is such a powerful thought to leave on. You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.